Now that we understand the basics of the theory of change, let's look at an example. We'll walk you through Project Superwomen. This project aims to change the lives of domestic violence survivors. Domestic violence is a hidden problem that affects many women, making them feel stuck and powerless. But Project Superwomen helps them gain confidence and become financially independent. This project shows the strength of working together. Now let's see how Project Superwomen is making a real difference.
Domestic violence is a widespread problem that affects many women, often making them feel stuck and powerless. Project Superwomen started as a ray of hope, showing the strength of working together. This program was created by 3 groups: a social service provider, a job training center, and a domestic violence shelter. They knew that real empowerment for survivors meant not just escaping abuse, but also gaining financial independence. They realized that lasting change needed tackling the root causes of vulnerability and giving survivors the tools to build a better future. Project Superwomen believes that giving survivors skills in higher-paying, non-traditional jobs is key to breaking the cycle of poverty and dependence. But the program is more than just job training. It understands that survivors often have emotional wounds and face unique challenges that can hold them back. Project Superwomen meets these needs by offering full support, including counseling, childcare, and life skills training. In the next sections, we'll see how Project Superwomen follows the principles of the theory of change, showing its success in making lasting, positive changes in the lives of women who have faced great challenges.
Here's how TOC works, broken down into 6 simple steps. First, set your long-term goals. Second, work backwards to link outcomes. Third, fill in the outcomes framework. Fourth, identify your assumptions. Fifth, create indicators to measure progress. Sixth, plan your interventions.
First, we look at the big picture. Our main goal is to help survivors of domestic violence get jobs that pay well. This is important for their financial independence and overall well-being. To reach this goal, we need to meet a few key conditions. The first condition is teaching survivors strong coping skills. These skills help them deal with the emotional and psychological effects of their past.
The second condition is giving survivors marketable skills in non-traditional jobs. By learning skills in fields with more job opportunities, they improve their chances of getting stable, rewarding work. The third condition is making sure survivors know and show proper workplace behavior. Understanding workplace norms and behaviors is key to keeping a job and doing well in a professional setting. These conditions are based on experience and research. Each one is an important step toward our main goal. Meeting these conditions will help survivors get lasting, meaningful jobs and a brighter future.
After setting the big goals and a simple plan, this step goes into more detail about how to reach those goals. In Project Superwomen, designers asked what women need to get long-term jobs, focusing on coping skills, job skills, and good workplace behavior. They figured out what it takes for women to learn these skills. This detailed plan is important for knowing what actions and resources are needed at each step. In the first step, we linked the final goal of getting a job that pays well to 3 smaller goals using solid arrowed lines showing they are necessary steps. For example, the goal, survivors know how to get help and deal with their issues, has 2 direct steps below it. By showing these connections with arrowed lines, we can clearly see the logical flow from one goal to the next. Showing these connections helps confirm the plan's logic and identifies where to step in. By checking the connections, designers make sure each step makes sense and that the needed resources and actions are in place. In conclusion, mapping backward and connecting outcomes provide a clear path to reach long-term goals. For Project Superwomen, this process ensures each step towards long-term jobs for domestic violence survivors is clear and supported.
In this third step, we look at how to detail the steps from the start to the end, focusing on a group of organizations creating job programs for domestic violence survivors. To finish the framework, we need to clearly explain each step. For example, let's look at the step, women join the program. There's an important point here. The program can't help all women. So, joining the program must include checking to make sure participants have enough reading and math skills to take the training and are stable enough to attend classes. The program doesn't have the resources to teach basic skills or provide major social services. Early in the planning, the group realized they only had the resources to help women who had already started to stabilize their lives. While the program could handle temporary issues like emergency housing, it couldn't deal with more permanent or serious issues, like substance abuse. At this point, it might seem that the connections between steps and outcomes are simple. You might think, if it's below another outcome, then it must be a step. Why all the arrowed lines? While organizing steps in this simple framework is not hard, more complex frameworks can have boxes near each other without a direct relationship, and connections can span across the framework. For the clarity of the framework, showing connections with arrowed lines is essential. These connections make sure that every step is logically sound and that all necessary actions and resources are accounted for. In conclusion, finishing the outcomes framework involves clearly explaining each step and ensuring logical connections between them. For our example of creating job programs for domestic violence survivors, this process helps make a structured and effective plan.
Before, we talked about how the program works best with women who are starting to get their lives back on track. Any program is only as good as the ideas it's built on. This part looks at how important these ideas or assumptions are for the program's success and how writing them down helps everyone understand and agree on them. Sadly, these assumptions are often not said out loud or just taken for granted, which can cause confusion and problems in running and checking the program. To fix this, the TOC writes down these assumptions to ensure everyone is on the same page for planning and future reference. Certain things need to be true for the long-term goal of getting survivors of domestic violence into stable, well-paying jobs. Assumption A: there are jobs available in fields that women don't usually work in. Assumption B: jobs in these fields, like electrical work, plumbing, carpentry, and building management, are more likely to pay well, be unionized, and offer job security. Some of these jobs also have a clear path for moving up, from beginner to expert, giving new workers a future career. These two assumptions explain why we think this program can work. There are jobs in these fields, and they can offer better financial and career opportunities. For the goal, survivors learn coping skills, which is also needed for the long-term goal. The assumption is Assumption C: women who have been abused need more than just job skills. They need to be emotionally ready to work too. This assumption shows why this program is different from regular job training programs, focusing on the special emotional support needed for the clients. For the goal, survivors learn skills for non-traditional jobs. It is assumed that Assumption D: women can learn these new skills and compete in the job market. This assumption is a belief that women can succeed in this new job market. Writing down assumptions and reasons is an ongoing process. As new goals are added and moved into the plan, it's important to keep asking and explaining why they are needed. In the end, identifying and writing down assumptions makes sure everyone understands the basic ideas behind the program. This understanding is key for good planning and making the program work.
The next step is to create simple ways to measure success. Each measure has 4 parts: who, how many, how much, and by when. But don't worry about the fancy terms. Just ask these 4 questions for each measure. Who is changing? How many do we expect will succeed? How much is good enough? By when does this need to happen? Let's look at some examples for Project Superwomen to see how this works. Outcome 1. Long-term jobs with good pay for domestic violence survivors. For this, our measure is employment. We want to know, who is changing? Program graduates. How many do we expect will succeed? We'll track all graduates. How much is good enough? Graduates should stay in their jobs for at least 6 months and earn at least $12 per hour. By when does this need to happen? Within 6 months of graduating. Outcome 2. Survivors gain useful skills in non-traditional jobs. For this, we have two measures. First measure, skill in electrical, plumbing, carpentry, or building maintenance. We want to know who is changing. Program participants. How many do we expect will succeed? All participants in these training tracks. How much is good enough? Participants should complete an internship in their chosen field. By when does this need to happen? By the end of their training program. Second measure, program graduation. We want to know who is changing. Program participants. How many do we expect will succeed? All participants in the program. How much is good enough? Participants must graduate from the program. By when does this need to happen? By the end of their training program. Outcome 3. Women attend training classes in non-traditional skills. For this, our measure is attendance. We want to know who is changing. Program participants. How many do we expect will succeed? All participants. How much is good enough? Participants should miss no more than 3 classes. By when does this need to happen? Throughout their training program. In conclusion, creating measures involves clearly defining who is changing, how many we expect will succeed, how much is good enough, and by when the outcome needs to happen. These measures help us track the success of our program and ensure we reach our goals.
The last step is all about interventions, what the program needs to do to get the results we want. Interventions are the actions that stakeholders will take to reach their goals. It's important to clearly outline these actions so everyone knows what to do. Here are some example interventions for Project Superwomen. Intervention 1, Outreach Campaign. This means creating and running a campaign to let potential participants know about the program. Intervention 2, Screening and Enrollment. This involves a process to find women who have the necessary literacy and math skills and whose lives are stable enough to join the training. Intervention 3, Training and Skill Development. This includes offering courses and hands-on training in job skills like electrical work, plumbing, and carpentry. Intervention 4, Support Services. The program should provide support services like temporary housing help, counseling, and mentoring. Intervention 5, Job Placement and Follow-up. The program should help participants find jobs, prepare for interviews, and offer follow-up support.
To wrap up, here's what we did. First, we set our goals. We wanted to help domestic violence survivors get jobs that pay well. This is important for their financial independence and overall well-being. Second, we worked backward from our goal. We figured out what skills and behaviors they needed to get those jobs. We then connected these steps to show how they lead to our main goal. Third, we completed our plan. We made sure each step was realistic and fit within the program's limits. Fourth, we listed our assumptions. We noted things like the availability of jobs in non-traditional fields and the need for participants to be emotionally ready for work. This helped everyone understand the basics of the program. Fifth, we created indicators. These are clear measures to track the program's success. They show who is changing, how many are expected to succeed, how much progress is good enough, and by when. And sixth, we identified interventions. These are the actions the program needs to take, like outreach campaigns, screening and enrollment processes, training and skill development, support services, and job placement and follow-up. By following these steps, the Theory of Change framework gives us a clear plan to reach our long-term goals. It makes sure everyone knows what actions to take, what assumptions we have, and how we measure success.